Hi, everybody. Welcome to Human Services Porter County. And in this episode, I'm very pleased to bring you a friend and colleague of mine. And this is Megan Hughes. She works at Ivy Tech Community College here in Valparaiso. And she is our Student Experience Director. And I invited her onto the podcast because this is Pride Month. And I thought it was very important for us to discuss and understand LGBTQ issues. And Megan is going to help us understand that in an academic level, but also on a personal level. So welcome, Megan, and thank you for taking part in this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Don. It's a pleasure. I know we talked about how important this is, and I want to make sure that I share my story and some different pieces of information, advice, or just overall good general knowledge about Pride Month and about the LGBTQ community. So I think this is going to be a really important episode, and I'm excited to be part of it.
Thank you so much. I wanted to start off before we start talking about Pride Month. First of all, I think it's ridiculous that we have to have a month designated for this. You know, people should be proud of being whoever they are, regardless. But it is what it is, and acceptance, you know, is a state of evolution. So we're getting there. And an introductory question that I would like to ask of you is, people have been noticing in emails and other communications that they're beginning to use their they'll say my preferred pronouns, and they'll say him, his, and she, her, and then there are others as well. Could you explain what that is, why it's important, and what your preferred pronouns are?
Sure. So I think it's also important to kind of touch real quick on the fact that LGBTQ plus, like all of those letters, there's a huge spectrum of people that are a part of this community, and not everyone is one thing or one letter. Sometimes it's blurred, or sometimes it's not so much about sexual orientation as it is about who you feel you are and your gender identity. So the pronouns have to do with your gender identity. And it may or may not even correlate to maybe how your orientation is or anything like that. So for me, my pronouns are she, her. And so that has always been fine with me, but there are some people who, you know, it's kind of a hard thing to explain because I in particular do not feel that I'm not transgender, but there are some people who have a preferred pronoun, and it's just what they prefer to go by, and that's how they feel. And so now people are really trying to make their voices heard and make their voices known about their preferred pronouns. And while it can be confusing for some people to try to keep track of them or to go by them if they're different than what they first think your pronouns could be, it is another way to express who you are and part of the community. There's a lot more voice coming out about it. So I think what it is people are now feeling comfortable enough to go ahead and list them in hopes that you will have the respect enough to go by them the best you can. And so a lot of people are putting them next to their name, and I think that's wonderful. I think it's a lot of people are finally feeling a little more secure that they can go ahead and put them. And so there's a lot to that we can maybe get into, but it's just a matter of what they prefer to go by. It's no different than saying, can you call me Dave instead of David? You know, try to say Dave if you can. And people know that if you mess up or if you say the wrong one, that it's okay, you're trying. But it's part of their identity, and you know, it's just as easy as saying I want to go by, you know, a different name and things like that. So I think people putting them next to their names is starting to show that they're getting more secure about sharing that.
Okay, great. That's very helpful. And, one thing that I would like to acknowledge to everybody who's watching is, if the LGBTQ plus population is not something that you have experienced in your family or with friends, it does seem a little overwhelming because there are a lot of terms and acronyms, and it's that and some of the things that we ask of people in the community are things that those of us who are straight and cisgender, and there's another term. So as we go through, let's try to make sure that we define for everybody what that means. So, I'm straight and I'm cisgender, so I'm attracted to women and I identify as a male. But for our audience, I would encourage you to try to empathize and with the conversation that we're having with Megan today, and the personal things that she's going to be speaking out about, that's not something I can't imagine anybody ever asking me, an old straight white guy, saying, so tell me about your sex life and how that's affected, your development and all that. So when you do have somebody who is kind enough to really gift you with the trust to talk about such very personal information, we need to return that with appreciation and respect, because think about how hard it would be for you to talk about these issues. So I thank you, Megan, for being open and being willing to share. And if there's anything that we start talking about that you feel uh, you're not ready to discuss publicly, just say so, and that will be completely respected, because you're already going to be talking about more than I would be comfortable talking about in my own life. So anything that you say is brave, and we appreciate the trust. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I think whenever you sit down or talk with somebody about things, you're always kind of, I don't know, a little bit worried about what might come up, and you may not feel like you can, I guess, like if someone asks you a question, a lot of times I'll feel obligated to try to give everybody the information they need as someone who likes to help people understand things. But it makes me feel good to know, like, I don't have to say everything, and we have the trust between you and me anyway as
Yes.
friends and colleagues. So
Uh-huh.
appreciate you saying that. There could always be a little something where I'm like, that's a little too close. So
Yeah, years ago, about 15, well, between 15 and 20 years ago, at a university, I was teaching a course in human sexuality, and it I had a guest come in, and it was very different times than it is today. As rough as it can be today, it was in the early 2000s, in my opinion. It seemed like it was a much more challenging place, and it was tricky because it was live and interactive in a classroom, and uh, yeah, for lack of a better phrase, I didn't want my guests to feel like they were an animal at the zoo on exhibit. And
yeah.
we also had a combination of very insightful questions to very, very inappropriate questions that you would never dream of asking somebody else. So uh, I think that this format is a really good way to talk about this particular topic. So
Right.
let's go ahead. I've got some questions that you and I worked through earlier. So I will start with the first one, and I did address that we have a Pride Month. Can you share some of your thoughts and feelings about Pride Month and what it means?
Sure. So yeah, as you know, June is Pride Month. It's I think it's a few different things, but mostly it is like the month where it's partially like celebrating the community and partially providing a voice and like support and just sort of um it can still be half celebration and kind of half um not political but activist based and very like, yes, this is Pride Month, we're celebrating us. Please remember we have rights, and please remember we're here, and please, you know, we're happy to be here and celebrating, but we want to, you know, it's also a good month like for this type of thing to maybe shed some light on some things, have discussions and just sort of gather. And so there are things like Pride Fests and parades, and you might see a lot of businesses have flags and things in their windows. And so it's a time to show support. You know, if you're an ally, you can definitely show that you support the community. And there are celebrations and awesome fun things. I know Michigan City had their Pride Fest this past weekend. I went there. There was lots of booths and vendors, and everybody was really awesome. Giving away lots of cool stuff and talking, and everybody was free to just dress however they want to dress and walk around and feel safe and included and supported. So it's a month where we just I think we loosen the reins a bit, and we just try to come together and lose some of the fear and get in a celebratory mindset and just have that time to be together and to not be nervous or afraid as much, which we can get into. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of things that we deal with, but it's just a really good month. There's a lot of great things going on and events, and so just another thing to celebrate and to bring awareness to.
Right. This is not on our list of questions, but it came to my mind because I've heard people, with different opinions and attitudes, ask questions and make statements. And I'm only asking you to speak for Megan. You are not the representative of the entire community. But you did a great job of describing what Pride Month is. What would you say to someone who says, well, why don't we have a straight Pride Month?
Yeah. Well, I guess I feel like this came up in an episode of Friends once. Where
I
if
swear I
anybody's a Friends
didn't
person.
steal it from them. I would cite my source.
Oh no. It just goes to show that even in 1994, 1993,
Yeah.
there was, if anyone's watching as a Friends fan, Ross's ex ends up saying, okay, I think I'm a lesbian, and she leaves him and she gets with another woman, and they joke about like Father's Day, Mother's Day, or something like that. And she says something like, there's a Father's Day, there's Mother's Day, there's this day, there's no lesbian lover day. And Ross just goes, every day is lesbian lover day. In other words, like, you guys get to go live your life, because they're talking and fighting because they're gonna have a baby, he and her, and then she's with this other woman, and it's complicated, and he's getting all emotional. But so I think the reason why there are any type of celebration for some sort of event or some sort of minority group or something, it's usually to celebrate or support that group and bring awareness to it. And I think really why there might not be a straight month or a straight Pride Month is because the majority of people are straight, or maybe that's the norm, and we don't need to celebrate it and put a big shining light on it. because it's already what everybody thinks is right, if I'm
Yeah.
being honest.
No, I think that you gave a great answer because so many people feel, who are more traditional, they express feelings of, the good old days and my values are all being eroded and things are changing. And I agree with you very much. I think, and these are my words, not yours, but I think that many of those who fit in the expected range, of sexuality and identity, they mistake a celebration and a uplifting of the people who don't fit the so-called norm as an attack on their rights. And it really isn't because, we've got 12 months of straight pride, and this is just as you described, I think very aptly, it's just bringing awareness and saying, we want to be treated well too. So it's not, uh, I mean, you don't see it, I don't think. I'll let you speak for yourself, but you don't see it as a way of trying to take away anyone else's rights, do you?
No, absolutely not. Of course not.
Okay. And
Yeah.
to me, that's like any other minority group that wants recognition and celebration of a particular month. They're doing that because, again, the norm, those who conform to the societal norms, they don't really need to celebrate that. That's the benchmark that anybody who deviates is uh, evaluated against. So there's no need to celebrate that. So
Right.
I appreciate your sharing your thoughts about Pride Month. Um, can you share your story about being part of the LGBT community?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. For me, we talked a little bit about like pronouns, and I went ahead and said mine are she, her. Um, it's funny, it's always just been who I was. And it wasn't until I was younger and kind of realized, oh, this might not be what everybody else is doing, that I thought anything was any different. So so I and here's the thing, for everyone listening, sexual orientation is so fluid. It really is. I think that's why there's so many letters that are added, is because everyone is kind of realizing that there's not just one or two like answers. There's a bunch of different things. So, I would say, to be honest, like I identify as lesbian, bisexual. I did marry, this is something funny. I did marry a woman. So some people joke like, okay, you picked a side. And I did, because I picked, this is the best person I ever met, and she's the one, so she's it. Doesn't mean that I didn't have crushes on boys every now and then. I would say that if I had to, like, you know, go on one side or the other, I always did prefer women, but I never didn't think certain guys were cool or sweet, or I liked any boys, but just kind of how it happened. And so that's why it's hard to really just put a certain label on it. It's really fluid. I fell for a lot of different people for a lot of different ways that were not all women. And so,
Mhm.
um, and so for me, I'd say lesbian or bisexual. Um, Ever since I was little, I knew that I thought girls were really a little extra cool than some of my other female best friends. And so it was always just, I'd have a little crush on a girl or something in like first grade, very soon, very early. And thankfully, my parents were, well, at least my mom was very like, okay, yeah. So, what does she like? Does she like, different things? You know, maybe if we see something, we can get her a present. Like she was very, supportive right away. I didn't know what I was really feeling or doing, and I
Uh,
didn't know that it wasn't normal necessarily. But ever since I was a kid, I just kind of knew I really wanted to play football and baseball and do different things and have a lot of guy friends. And then I also thought girls were cool and really pretty, and just kind of was how I grew up. It wasn't until about fifth grade when I told a girl that I thought she was cute and pretty, and she was like, "Oh, you're a girl. That's weird." And I was like, "Why?" And then because all my friends were boys and all my boyfriends were like, in a funny way, they thought they were like, "No, you can't like her because I like her, and that's just one more person in the way." So they were very supportive.
so they saw you as competition.
Yeah. And so they were such good friends, and I'm still friends with almost all of them to this day. Um, but it wasn't until about fifth grade when I was starting to notice I'd get silly, weird looks from the girl that I liked, or they would be whispering to their friends, and I'm like, what, do I got something on my face or what? Like I used to be like, what's the problem? So then middle school, I was like, oh, I think I might like girls. Oh no, I feel like this is bad. I don't think I want to tell anyone. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what this is. And then high school, similar thing. I decided to come out in high school to my friends, who of which all those boy friends of mine were all like, we know. And I was like, I still need to tell you for me. And they're like, whatever, you've been liking the girls I've liked all our lives. It's fine. We know. And it would be like that. But so I had a pretty good experience. It was everybody was pretty supportive. I still had to sort of come out formally to my dad, who apparently didn't catch on. Um, and that was tough because he's a religious man.
Mhm.
And there's some things there that we're working on our relationship, but he's not as supportive, even though he's my dad. But my mom and grandparents and family and friends, they were all like, yeah, whatever. Just find somebody that's decent and a good person, please, so we don't have to beat them up. I was like, okay, I'll
Uh,
do my best.
That sounds like a good rule, you know?
Yeah.
Find somebody nice we don't have to beat up because they're not nice to you.
Yeah. It was never, oh, well, don't you want to, you should be with a boy, I think. It was never like that. It was always like, make sure they're a good person, and that's all we want is for you to be happy. So I was fortunate enough not to have too rough of an experience being lesbian, bisexual as I was growing up. A lot of people I've met have had way worse experiences. I feel for them so much. I'm so grateful for my family to just sort of be like, okay, well, that's great. Let us know when we can meet XYZ person you're with. And that does not happen a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking how very fortunate you are because,
Mm-hmm.
in your generation and certainly in mine, there were just horror stories that I've heard kids being thrown out of the house and they become homeless. And, that's a time when you need your family to rally around you and tell you that they love you and accept you unconditionally. And then when you open up and talk about something so personally, to be rejected by the people that
Mm-hmm.
matter the most to you, I can't imagine the pain that would be affiliated with that. So I'm really
Yeah.
glad you had a much better experience than an awful lot of people do.
Yeah. I'm very fortunate, and I've heard those stories too. And it really does. I think it's important how when you decide to finally come out and be who you are, what happens next is really what sets you on your trajectory. Because if I had had a worse experience, who knows where I'd be. I mean, things would have gotten much darker. I don't know what I would have, I might have changed a lot of things. I may have not gone to school where I went to, like to college, or I may have moved somewhere completely different, not met my wife, like all these things. Because I had that family and friends that were supportive, I was able to be who I was. I may not have ever had the guts to look for a female partner. I might have just said, oh, I just can't, it's too hard, I can't be different. And that's what a lot of people have to do sometimes. So I'm very fortunate it didn't happen to me, but for everyone else, I mean, that's why I'm here. It's like, I just want you guys to feel like there's another voice here. Maybe my experience is different, but this community, while there are several types of people in the community, we're all still together. And I will always, I always, whenever I meet someone or go to one of the Pride Fests, I look at everybody and I'm just like, we're all different, but we're all the same. And I think of that even with everybody, with straight people, with everyone. So that's really, to me, what Pride is about. Is we're stepping out, we're coming together, we're being a family, and a lot of people will support you. And it might be the month where you feel like you can be yourself finally, after all the other 11 months of
I hadn't
hiding.
thought about that. That's a very good point.
Right. Yeah. So it's important. For sure.
What would you say to, because, we've already discussed how the choice of words is very powerful. So what would you say to folks who, rather than viewing it as a sexual orientation, which, I'm a social scientist, so in the social sciences, we see a sexual orientation as something that you have been born with, rather than some terminology that other people might use, saying lifestyle, as though it's a choice. Again, you're not the spokesman for all people, but what's your response to that, about whether it's a choice or something that you're just born with? Because it seems like you knew pretty early on.
This is a really good question. I'm glad you brought it up. We should have added it to the list anyway. So, so this whole idea of, are you born, having a certain attraction to certain people, or is it a nurture thing where you just kind of grow up and maybe that's just what you decide to do? I think, and again, I'm not going to, like you said, I'm not going to speak for everybody. For me, I think a chunk of it was just how I was born. And some of it was environmental. I'll be very honest. I saw a lot of very strong female figures and very not supportive, not very great male figures. But when I was like 5 or 6 and I was having crushes on Britney Spears, I didn't notice hey, my mom works really hard and she's great, and my dad doesn't really do anything. I wasn't really noticing any differences in male figure, female figure. So I think that genetically, it was part of my development just when I was born. That's why when people are really, really young and they say like, I like girls or I like boys, or I feel like I'm in the wrong body. You've heard of cases where young kids are like, I want to be a boy, I want to be a girl. I think that that's inherently in you. And then I think that there are factors that are around you that may sort of foster it or solidify it, or different things. So I think it's a little bit of both, but I want to put this really clear. If it's a choice, it's not the easy one at all. If it is a choice, I don't think it's a choice. I think who you decide to date is your choice, but the feeling that you're attracted to a female if you're a female, or a male if you're a male, or you feel that you are in the wrong body, those things I think are just in you when you're born. But like what I mean about the choice being not the easy one, If I could choose to be straight in the terms of not have to worry about certain things, I totally would.
Wouldn't it be so much easier, no
Yes.
judgment, but with all the pressure in society,
Mm-hmm.
if it was something that you could say, and as a straight man, I have to tell you, reflecting back, I don't remember any point where I sat and thought to myself, gee, am I going to be straight, gay, or bi? I was just attracted to who I was attracted to, the way
Mm-hmm.
that you described it, because there's not a lot of societal incentives for people to choose to
Mm-hmm.
be non-conforming. You pay a price for it.
Yeah, exactly. And as you didn't have to think that hard about who you were attracted to. It's just who it was, right? So do you feel like that was something that you were just born with, or did you choose?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that I was born that way, and I never put any conscious choice into it. I was just attracted to who I was attracted to.
Mm-hmm.
And, one thing that I wanted to raise, not a question, but just observation, because a lot of people have raised questions about those who are straight when they're young and they start their families, and then suddenly they're middle age and they choose to be gay.
Mm-hmm.
I so much don't think that that is the reality. And as a social scientist who studied this, and as a trained ally, I really believe that in those cases, it's people trying really hard to conform because, as we've both acknowledged, it's so much easier to do what's expected of you. And especially in my generation and older, uh, people, they would go to prom with the opposite gender, even if that's not the person that they wanted to really go to prom with. And they were expected to get married and have kids and a career, and they did all that. And, being my age, I can say once you get to a certain point in the lifespan, you get to where you think to yourself, okay, am I going to spend the rest of my life pretending, or am I going to be authentic and live my own life? And
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, and there's significant literature that supports this, that it's the latter. It's people who are finally, and I'm not judging them as, boy, you should have decided this a long time ago, but finally they've built up enough comfort in who they are and confidence where they say, yeah, I've got 20, 35 years left in my life, and I'm not going to spend that lying like I felt that I did in the first half of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I really feel strongly about that. And I know that that's something that people who believe in choice, they talk about that quite frequently. And uh, the Kinsey Institute, we were talking about sexuality being fluid. That fits in with the research that Alfred Kinsey did at the Kinsey Institute at Indiana University. And he came up with a scale, as you may or may not know, where they talk about at different points in life, we're a little bit more on this side or on that side, and that it's extremely rare that there's anybody who's 100 on
Mm-hmm.
either uh, gay or straight, that we usually fall somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. So for those who think that it's really cut and dry and simple, I would just suggest, and you can share your opinion and you can be free to disagree with me if you want, but I think that it's much more complicated than that.
Yeah, I agree. So it got me thinking, I mean, like you said earlier, these types of questions, don't usually get asked by a straight man or a straight woman, or to a straight man or a straight woman. It's just people who are not get asked these questions. I think there's a lot of confusion, and when you don't understand something, you fear things, and all these, there's a lot of reasons why, but it's, yeah, I mean, it's such a fluid thing. Like you said, if there's a scale, it's kind of like maybe here, but not quite, or maybe here. I think as everyone tries, everyone, they say don't put yourself in a box, but everyone just wants to sort of find a way to name what it is they are, because they feel like that will help them. And so I think that's why, again, these letters, there's tons of letters, because everybody's like, well, this is how I feel. It's not quite this, it's not quite this. I think I'm going to name it this. I think this is right. I'm going to name it this. This is who I am. This is how I feel. It makes me feel good to know that I've named it. And so I think with people, with maybe someone who's straight or whatever, a lot of people who are straight might be very, I'm going to say very straight, where they're just like, oh, I could never be with a man. Are you kidding me? And then there's people who are very straight and they've married and everything, and they're like, I mean, I wouldn't kick Brad Pitt out of bed or anything, something goofy
There's
like
not a
that.
lot of people who would. That's a blessed man.
Right. He's aging like a fine wine. So,
Yes.
and so I think you're very right in that research is right. It's not one or the other, and that's why there's so many letters, and that's why there's so many people who have, a slightly different, maybe a different situation. And even me, like I said, it was never, oh, all girls all the way. Yeah, all boys all the way. I told you I had a little bit of here and there.
Sure.
And maybe I preferred one, and I found the best human who happened to be a female, and that was like, okay, good. That works out. But there's so much, yeah, it's people don't really, it's hard to understand if you're on the outside. So I'm, again, glad that we're talking about it, and I'm glad that you're open to like learning about it and asking questions. And that's really all we want. I'm saying we as just someone who's part of the community. We're who we are, and we can't explain it really. We try to explain it. But just like you can't really understand why you like women, you just do. We're the same way. And I think, again, that's what this month is always about, just kind of like putting awareness back on it. We're the same as far as just being people and having jobs and living life and being happy, trying to be. But because people are confused, we're kind of scared, and we don't know if people will understand, and that's okay. We don't need you to understand, just to respect us and understand that we're people and we deserve rights and equality like you guys do. And there's a lot to that. So, but yeah, it's very fluid. Going back to that,
Right.
there is no cut and dry.
And you made one really good point that I would just like to elaborate on slightly. And it was about you just wanting to be understood, and that you were glad that we were having this conversation. And I think in diversity in general, not just about sexuality, but about race and socioeconomic statuses and so many different categories. If you talk to somebody with a genuine curiosity and you're asking respectfully, I'd like to learn more. I've not, it was my son at one time went to a school that was predominantly African American. And he was the only Caucasian child in his elementary school class. And a little girl had a crush on him, and he had yellow, soft hair, and she'd never touched that texture of hair before. And she just asked him, "You've got really pretty yellow hair. Can I touch that?" And he said, "Sure." And to me, if we can take that type of childlike, not
Yeah.
childish, but childlike curiosity and genuineness in trying to learn about somebody different from ourselves, we would all get along so much better and we would respect each other. So I'm
Mhm.
never, ever going to forget the lesson that that little girl taught me and my son, uh, because cute. When he got home, we looked through his backpack and she had slipped a note in his backpack and said, "I think that your hair is pretty," you know?
Aw.
So, it just doesn't get any better than that. And I think that that's the spirit that we need to take in getting to know anybody that we have traditionally defined as being the other. Just
Mhm.
because they're different doesn't mean they're bad. It's a learning opportunity.
You're exactly right. And so it's funny because, yeah, every sort of person who's different, every minority, they'd say the same stuff that I said, the same things of, we're just like you, and we just want to kind of bring some awareness, and we want to make sure that we're all respected. And, the understanding that the understanding would be great. But some people don't want to understand, which is okay. We really just want to go back to the idea of, you don't have to like it or understand what we do and how our lives are, but please respect us. Please treat us like every other person. And that's why people are fearful, is because they're worried about their safety, whether it's their emotional safety, physical safety, mental safety. Anyone who's different, are going to be fearful of being that person. That's why when you mentioned, well, what about this? I knew someone who was married with kids, and then all of a sudden he's got a boyfriend.
Mhm.
I am very in agreement with you that it is probably likely something he felt his whole life, and has just finally decided, you know what, I just want to be who I am. Um, and maybe, that's the other thing, is people might say, oh, I can't believe that, for instance, he married someone and had kids, and then he left his wife, and that's horrible. I feel horrible for her. And yeah, I do too, because no one wants to break up a family or be divorced or like
Right.
have that problem. But um, it doesn't mean he probably loved her. And he might have been somewhere in the middle at that point and been like, she's great. I love her. She's fantastic.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean that he doesn't have those feelings about men, or that he didn't always have those thoughts. So again, it's very fluid.
Mhm.
And yeah. And first, there are a lot of people who don't want to learn or understand, and that's okay. Like I said, we just hope you respect us, and you just, for a better term, lack of a better term, just like let us be, and we'll let you be, and that's fine. And we'll just go on with our life. And that's why Pride Month is special, because we can kind of come out of the darkness a little bit more, because it's like, oh, we can celebrate this month. We have
Mhm.
30 days. Okay, we can be out here. But there's still that looming fear of, is somebody gonna protest this parade, or is somebody gonna come out here and ruin it? I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm 29, almost 30, and I've been very comfy in my skin for a really long time. And at the Pride Fest in Michigan City, I was just kind of keeping eyes around, and like, I was like, okay, there's cops. That's good. There's cops here, because I'm like, I'm trying to celebrate, but I still was on edge. And my wife was like, "You don't really like these, do you?" And I'm like, "It's not that I don't like it. I'm just worried. I'm constantly just watching my back." And
Mhm.
that's a struggle that I deal with. And talked, that we were going to mention some of those things. There are things that anybody who's a minority might have to deal with that maybe a traditional person wouldn't. And being at the event that celebrates me, I still was kind of like in a shell a bit, because I was like, somebody could come in here and mess it up. And there was a protester, but thankfully he just had a sign. He didn't say anything. He wasn't bothering people. He was just had his sign.
Right.
But even at that event, my wife was like getting all the fun stuff and eating and enjoying, and she's like, letting loose. And I was like this, even though I was surrounded by people in the community.
Mm-hmm.
There's just always that fear. Again, somebody who doesn't understand me might try to mess this up, or might try to hurt me, or might try to yell at me, or yeah, it's like, and I don't know if everybody feels that. I feel like some people do, some people don't. My wife was able to sort of let the guard down.
Mm-hmm.
And I had it up even more than usual at that event, because I'm like, there's tons of us here.
Mm-hmm.
This could be bad. It wasn't. It was lovely. But in the back of my mind, I was on guard, which is unfortunate.
Sure. Well, before I ask the next question, I just want to share an experience that a friend of mine, who's in my generation, went through, and then see how much of that might apply to your day-to-day life as well.
Yeah.
But we've got some very dear friends who are two men who are married. And he was actually the one who was the guest speaker at the university where I was teaching. And I asked him a question about, how does this impact your day-to-day life? What is it that's most upsetting to you? And he said, it's the smallest things that you might not think about. And I asked him to clarify, and he said, sure. They live in Chicago, and they like to go to concerts and Cubs games and all sorts of things like that. And they use public transportation. And he said, we went out and we went to a concert, and it ran late, and we're on the L and we're riding home. And I saw in front of me a straight couple, and they were resting their heads together. And it just reinforced to him that he always has to be on guard, because he was tired and he just so much wanted to lean up against his now husband's shoulder and just rest. But he knew, or felt, probably knew, that if he did that, he would be putting himself at risk of, at minimum, people hollering at him. And, as we all know, people are victims of violence. And he said it's those little tiny things in a relationship that most people just do automatically, and I can never just completely relax and exist in my own little bubble like everybody else and have that moment with my husband. So my question to you is, what are some day-to-day struggles or challenges that you face being in the LGBTQ community?
Yeah, I'm glad that we brought this up. What he said is very true. And that's going back to it being a choice. People may not realize, but I'll say I won't say we anymore. I'm not going to speak for everybody. I work probably harder than the average straight person a day with the things that I do or do not do that you might just do. Not everybody, but like, for example, him saying he just wanted to lean on the shoulder. It's the same thing with hand holding. Like, was at the movies with my wife before we were still fiancés at the time. And she grabbed my hand because we were waiting to get like popcorn or whatever. Gonna see a movie. At that, we were gonna see a movie about a teenager who was coming out as gay. It was I don't remember which one it was called. It was just one of those movies a few years ago. So we already were like feeling like, well, we're gonna be going to see a movie about this. We're probably safe. And she was holding my hand, and I was teaching at the time in middle school. And some of my students were like, hey, they like called my name, like, hey, Mrs. Well, my last name was different at the time. They're like, hey. And when I saw them see me, I let go of her hand because I was like, I don't want them to see me holding your hand. And it caused like the whole movie, we watched the movie because they were going to see the movie too. But still, I was like, gonna just not do it. I was like, I know that they come from like a, certain family. I know they're in this movie, but we don't know why. And I don't want them to know. In the whole movie, I feel terrible about this still. This was in 2018. The whole movie, my wife sat there just looking so incredibly upset. And after the movie, we had like a fight. Like we fought. She was like, why'd you let go of my hand? I was like, I can't explain it. I didn't want students to know. And I'm sorry. And she was like, I just feel like you were hiding me. And I'm like, it's not that. It's just, I don't really want them to know this. I just started like, I'm scared and I don't want them to know. And we had like a argument. She eventually was like, I understand. And it's, but that was a big issue. And that was a me and her together issue. This isn't even me walking around at work, things that I do. But yeah, holding a hand, anything, arm around each other, getting too close in any way, stuff like that. I don't really worry as much anymore. I tried not to do that because I want to live my life. But things like that, for me, I've had many a time because of my short hair, many a time where I've been in the bathroom and somebody gives me like a double take because I have short hair and they think I'm a boy for a minute. Especially little kids, and little kids are just like, but probably more times than I can count since I've been for years. Every now and then a little kid will be like, why is there a boy in the bathroom? Or, point at me or say, Mom, there's a boy in the bathroom, because I have short hair and I like wear polo shirts and jeans and so. And then with the whole gender identity in the bathrooms, the same-sex bathroom topic now, I am a woman. I feel like, I identify as a woman and I go to the girls' bathroom. I don't want to go to the boys' bathroom. It's gross.
I
Sorry.
can attest that, yes, men's rooms are gross.
So I'll always go to like a regular, just gender neutral bathroom if I can, but sometimes you got to go to the girls' bathroom. I will always like take a look when I get in there and like just go to a stall real fast, shut the door. And then when I come out, I try to be really fast and leave, so that if someone comes out or someone's in there, they don't like get too good of a look at me. And sometimes I will on purpose, this is something I'm sharing with you, I will on purpose try to look more girly in the bathroom. And you're like, how do you do that? Well, I'll go like, and I'll just be like, instead of like I might normally do. I'll make my voice sound higher because I've had too many weird interactions and I just want to wash my hands and go. But because they're like giving me a look, I gotta like, I don't know, put on like a feminine show for a second, and then I get to go, and I get to leave.
Right.
And it just depends on where I'm at. Usually at like a Walmart or something, I'm like, I gotta put on a show probably because people are gonna.
Yeah.
And so the bathroom thing, guys, is a lot more than, I don't want someone who's saying they're a female, but they're really a male in my bathroom. We just want to go to the bathroom and then leave. without it being
Yeah.
weird. That's it. So things like that. Walking down the street, like if I see somebody who looks like, if somebody looks a little conservative or whatever, I'll kind of like try not to look at them and try to like walk the other way or whatever, just because I don't want them to see me that I'm a gay person, and it's like so like things like that. I cross the street a little sooner, or I watch the bathroom, or I try to say my name right away so they know it's a girl name, like stuff like that that you might not ever think about. And that's just a
Yeah,
couple.
those are great examples because they never occurred to me either. And you know very well that femininity and masculinity don't correlate with gay or straight.
Hmm.
You can have somebody who they may be 100% straight. They're one of the rarities that are 100% of anything, but they don't fit the stereotypical, oh, well, this is the way that a masculine person walks or talks, or this is the way a feminine person walks or talks. And people are quick to make assumptions about their sexual orientation where you can't always do that. Not every woman who has short hair and doesn't dress in frilly dresses is a lesbian. That we've over the different phases of feminism, we've recognized that and tried to free people of that. And to me, it's very interesting on an academic level where, and maybe your experiences don't fit with this, but it seems to me that there's more acceptance of women who can wear more boyish kinds of clothes than a man who dresses femininely or talks or moves, their gestures and so forth. They're
Hmm.
automatically defined by others as being gay. And being sensitive, I work in human services. I'm a sensitive person, but I'm not gay.
Hmm.
And we need more men in human services and social working. And it's not because women aren't doing a good job, but we need more representation. So the concept of representation is relevant in so many aspects of our lives, beyond our sexual orientation, just everybody feeling as though they belong.
Hmm.
And the example, and I don't want to get too far out in the weeds, but look at how people have responded to the remake of um,
Little Mermaid.
The Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
People are losing their minds over that, but I've seen little black girls and they're wearing these cute little thin, pants that make them look like mermaids, and they're so
Yeah.
proud. And I saw a clip where there was a little girl who was dressed up like a mermaid, African American girl, and they were at Disney World, and they just happened to come across the actress who played the role.
Cool.
And they recognized she recognized the actress, and then the actress could tell that the girl was getting very emotional, and it was just a beautiful clip.
Aw.
She hugged her for like 5 minutes, and the little girl just sobbed and said, now I've got somebody who looks like me. And that's
Yeah.
what diversity, equity, and inclusion is all about. It's not trying to force the gay agenda like it's a recruiting, Megan, did you
Yeah.
meet your quota of conversions today? It's
Oh my gosh.
ridiculous when you think
Yeah.
about it without the anger, mixed in with it. It's ridiculous, you know? Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure you understand much more than I do, having that just be a part of your everyday life.
I'm glad you brought up the like the Little Mermaid thing. I mean, I don't know if you saw when it was first coming out, like the trailer first came out, there were all sorts of clips on Facebook of different African American girls seeing the trailer and their parents were like taking a video of them
Mhm.
and like, who is that? Or look at that. And the little girls are like smiling or crying or just so happy when the reveal happens when it's the African American girl. I mean, that was like, that's so cool. I'm glad they're doing that.
Yeah.
And these little girls, and yeah, it's just another way to represent. And as soon as it happened, I was like, people are gonna freak out. Dang it.
And they did. They
Uh,
lost their minds, some people.
yeah, and I know we've talked about a lot of things, and I know that um, different people who may have, yeah, any problem or any lack of understanding for anyone who's different for whatever reasons. Think about how much, whatever you believe in, like how everybody got here, like all these things, you know, look at all the different things we have in just the world in general. We have cities and skyscrapers, we have beaches and oceans, we have everything in between. We have all these different cars, we have lots of different houses. We live in many different kinds of weather climates and many different kinds of things. Why can't people also be all different and make it cool? Like, I feel like the fact that we're all different and there's all these different types of people in the LGBT community or all these different types of races and all these different types of whatever, we're evolving too because we're all changing with the times and so are people. People are being created in different ways. I mean, this person and this person have a baby and that person is a little different than that person. And we're
Mhm.
all just sort of populating. And I think, and this is going to sound like, just another trope or whatever, I think the fact that we're all so different is the best part about us. And so it's a shame when some people pick and choose what's still acceptable different and what's too different, too much.
Right.
So, and yeah, just we still have a lot of racial injustice. I still can't believe we have some issues going on with that. But yes, there's all sorts of different types of people that are just trying to go about their day and they're really different in really cool ways. And think about how much we could accomplish with everybody's thinking, everybody's perspective. So I'm very in the mind of just embrace everybody's differences. That's why diversity, equity, belonging, inclusion, that's why those are all words and that's why they're good words. And why, yeah, seeing someone who looks like me is important. We want to see all of that representation because the world isn't even black and white anymore. It's everything. So I
Mhm.
think that that's where we're at, and everything else is changing. We are changing too, for the better, I would hope, and it's
Mhm.
very exciting. So I really hope that one of these days we can go back to those, like you said, the childlike innocence of, hey, I like your hair, or hey, you have a really cool shirt,
Mhm.
or your eyes are really blue. That's awesome. Or what's your name? Or can I be your friend? Can I hold your hand? Like that kind of just the kind of basic humanity that we all have in somewhere deep inside of us. Everybody has
Right.
it. So that's like the big point. And again, back to Pride Month. That's all, it's a lot of things I'm adding to what Pride Month is, but it's that good old can't we all just get along sort of phrase. That's how I personally view it.
I agree with you entirely. And that leads up very nicely as a segue to my next question, which is, and again, you're speaking for yourself, but how can we build or foster an atmosphere of inclusion, regardless of all of our differing personal, political, and religious views. So those are frequent obstacles to getting to where you were just talking about, which to me sounds like a really good destination for us to aim for. But with all these attitudes and differences and values that conflict with each other, how do we make that happen? Because this podcast, we want to give people a voice to be able to share, but we're also looking for ways in how we can bring about improvement and change. So if you had some advice, and I suppose, part of it may in reality require a magic wand to occur, especially in a timely manner. But what do you think are steps that we would need to go through to get there?
Well, again, you're right, like the magic wand, but I think there are just a couple of things, regardless of political, religious views, whatever it may be. I know that there's a lot of people who are religious and they believe in, Christianity or Buddhism or whatever type of religion, or maybe they are an atheist, or maybe they are just left wing, right wing, whatever views. And there's not a lot in common with all of them. Like there really isn't too many things in common, but as humans, people may have a view of why or why not, like how we know what's good, how to be a good person, how we know what's a bad thing to do. Or some people say, oh, well, it's the commandments, that's how we know. And some people are like, well, I just know that I should be nice to somebody. And other people are like, well, this, in my political views, this is what good things are. I think one of the biggest things is to try, if our everyday life, like let's say a straight person who maybe would be a little bit, not very open to new different things. Maybe they walk down the street and someone like me is walking toward them. I think it would take me to try and just let the fear down a bit and just sort of, here's me walking down the street toward you. And someone walking toward me, that it would take that person to just sort of say, hey, there's a human, a person who's walking down the street, going to wherever they're going. I'm going to where I'm going. And just whatever I try to do is I'll walk down the street. I don't care who it is. I always say hi to somebody. I don't know. I just like to say hi to people. And most of the time, like I have sunglasses on a lot of the time because the sun.
Mm-hmm.
So this is usually me. I'm usually walking and pretend I'm walking. I'll be like, hey, how's it going? Usually I get good, you? And I'm like, good. That's it. And I don't know who that person is. I don't know what they're like. But a lot of times just like, hey, how are you? People are like delighted. People are like, good, how are you? No matter who you are. So I think we need to try to bring back just the general like hellos and hi to whoever's walking down the street. I think that would help so much because I know somebody held the door open for me once, like a couple weeks ago. And you know what is the normal thing? Like, thanks. And they're like, no problem. And they go in. Or thanks, you're welcome. Or sometimes nothing. If they're in a weird mood, they don't say anything. But I went out and I was like, oh, thank you. And the guy went, no problem. Hey, have a good day. It was like that extra tag. And I was like, you too. And all the way home, I was like, man, that was such a nice thing he said. He didn't have to say that. I'm sure it was like, I have that auto response, have a good day, a lot of times. But I was like, that extra little thing made me so happy. So I think one step is to just kind of say hi to people, say hi to people a little more often, not worrying about what church are you in? Are you in a church? Or what do you do? Who are you? Are you part of the community? Are you, a Democrat or a Republican? Are you this or you that? and just start saying hi to people a little more often, like in the store. Show like a little act of kindness. I know people say that, but without wondering too much about it. Just like spread it a little bit, especially if, if it's someone who's part of a minority, that might affect them a lot more than you think in a good way.
Mhm.
So I think just going to the basic principle of kindness is a really big thing, because promoting more kindness can decrease the hate that we're all worried about. We're all scared or wondering who's wrong and who's right. And so that's going to take a lot. That's going to take the magic wand to be like, everybody, don't hate
Right.
everyone anymore. But just a little bit of the kindness, and remembering that we're all human. For anyone who's religious, it's, we all, if you're religious, you believe that you come from God, or you're a gift from God. So is everyone. We're all here. Try to think of it more as we're all here. We're all gifts. We're all, no matter what, we're all here. And it's such a great thing that we're here, and not think of the way of, the whole everyone, with religious things, people are sinners and all these things. There's just a lot to it. Just think about how great it is that people are walking around here and doing their thing, and offer some kindness when you can, and try not to get too in the weeds about who are you and what are you doing. Doesn't matter. Try to think about what you're doing. What are you doing today? Are you going to the store? Are you in a good mood? Are you gonna go play with your dog later? Are you gonna go to your son's soccer game? Think about what you're doing.
Uh-huh.
And if you can, yeah, just pull a Megan and be like, hey, how's it going? Hey,
You know
hold
what?
the,
We need to start selling those as Megan shades, because they look good on you, and that's
thank
what
you.
you do when you're acting out your I'm being nice and friendly. So maybe we need to mass produce the Megan shades, and people be a little bit nicer.
That'd
But
be
I
something.
love what you said, because, I threw out a very heavy question there, how do we change society and make everybody get along? And you did a beautiful job of boiling it down to something simple that everybody can do, and it takes very little effort. And you did a good job of pointing out that this person being kind to you, and not just doing it, kind of robot style, like the people when you go to the store, the checkout, have a nice day,
Hmm.
I'm forced to say that, but they choose to, and they genuinely wish you a nice day, and you thank them, and that you remembered that on the drive home. That's
Yeah.
got to have you feeling a little bit more optimistic. And maybe the person who held the door for you, uh, maybe they didn't recognize you as part of the community, or maybe they did a little bit later on and they thought, you know what, she was nice.
Hmm.
She had on those nice shades.
Yeah, the shades.
I think we've solved the problems of the world. We need more of those shades.
I love a good shade. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's true. I mean, I think that's really what it comes back down to. Because I didn't think, you know what I said to myself on the way? I literally talked to myself when I was walking out and back to my car.
Hmm.
I literally was like, oh, he was nice. That was so nice. That was a really nice thing. I kept saying nice. I was like, that was so nice. And I put the car on and I'm like, maybe we're going to be all right. I remember saying that to myself, like,
Wow.
maybe it's not so bad, because of that one guy saying, have a nice day, after he like opened the door for me. And kind of did like, hey, have a good day. And when I walked in. And I think when we're walking down the street, I know I keep saying this, walking down the street, but that's where everybody is. Everybody's walking, everybody's going somewhere. don't focus on where are they going? What are they about to go do? Are they going to go do something bad? Are they going to go do something? Are they going to do something bad or something good? It doesn't
Mhm.
really matter. There's so many people in the world. We all are going somewhere. We all have to go to work or go home. But whenever you can, if you feel like if you're in the mood, just a little like nod or a smile or a door open or something. If enough people spread that around, that was like 3 weeks ago, and I'm talking to you about it now. I was leaving a Starbucks. I remember I was in Munster. Like I remember where I was at and stuff.
Wow.
And I'm like, that was so nice. And that's the thing is I do that for people. I do that all the time too, because I just want to be, want you to want to have a nice moment with somebody who's a stranger. And that's another thing that we're strangers, but we're all still people. We're all still here. Don't worry so much about what are they up to, and worry about I'm up to what I'm up to, and I see this person, and I'm gonna say hi to this person, or I'm gonna hold this door open because they have hands full, and I want to help them, or I just want to help. I want to be kind today, and then you do enough of it, it does spread. I believe in the ripple effect.
I do too. I do too. I love your answer to that question. That's something that, because it does so often, as you alluded to, when you said maybe things are going to be okay after all, you hear so much bad news,
Mm-hmm.
and the anger and vitriol of people is what makes real nice little clips on TikTok or whatever social media or even television. And this is something that requires such little effort, and 3 weeks later you're
Yeah.
you're still glowing when you talk about that because it touched you. I think that if
Mm-hmm.
everybody did that, that would make a tremendous impact. I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah. And you
My
know
last
what's
oh, go ahead.
oh, sorry, I was just gonna add one point. The last thing about that is I can't really remember even what they looked like or anything about him except it was a guy. I remember it was a man. I don't
Mhm.
remember what he looked like. I think he was a white guy, but I don't remember. It didn't matter. I just keep thinking about what he said. And so again, it could have been anyone who just did that. So I think that's very key. And it's just shows you like, yeah, that just those couple words are really good. So I think it's funny that I don't remember what he looks like and it doesn't really matter. See, again, we don't have to worry about that stuff.
Yeah, it just really reinforced our commonality as human beings. And
Yeah.
I think that that's the key to all of that. Because we do
Mm-hmm.
too much dividing into us and them, and if we just saw ourselves as we
Mm-hmm.
going through life the best that we can, a lot of good would come from that.
Yeah.
Okay, my last question for you, and it's a weighty one. So we're ending by putting you on the spot here.
Okay. Go
So
ahead.
this last question is, how can I or anyone in our audience support someone if they come out to us? And what are some things I could do to show support to people in the LGBTQ community?
Yeah.
And I think that that's such an important question, and I didn't write it, you did. It's a wonderful question because I think if somebody trusts you enough to come to you and share something that personal, you should really be flattered and see it as a gift of trust. So,
Mm-hmm.
how would you recommend that somebody respond to that?
Well, yeah, first, as you said, it's one of the hardest things someone in the community could do, and it's usually the reason why maybe they've held back everything is they're afraid to come out. So if you were the person that they came to, no matter who it is, if it's like your son, daughter, friend, brother, colleague, neighbor, like whoever it is, you must be in their eyes someone that they can trust or that they love and care about enough to be this vulnerable with. And it's likely a friend or family member that's maybe coming to you, or like your kid, or maybe even if you've been a parent who's very inclusive and very I guess open-hearted, open-minded, it could be one of your kids' friends who comes to you or something. So just know that if you were the person that they chose to talk to, like you said, think about that you are one of the most important people to them if they're telling you this. So while some people do completely panic and kick that person out or disown that person, what you, instead of doing that, just realize, oh, you're coming to me with this. What I do next is very critical to this person, and you may not realize it. If I were to say, you're what? I can't believe it. Are you sure? This is going to disappoint XYZ. I can't believe it. You know what? Get out of my sight. Like, you're going to destroy that person. But on the other side, if you think, okay, this is important, I want to make sure that they feel seen and that they feel like they can be with me, they're safe right now. You could say something, no matter who it is, you could say, first of all, I really appreciate that you came to me with this information. I know this is probably so difficult for you to say to anyone, and I'm so grateful you came to me. I am here for you. I will comfort you. If you want to talk about it some more, we can talk about it. I want you to feel that you're supported and that there is nothing wrong with you. You are fantastic. You are great. This is who you are, and I'm proud that you are finally coming to terms with it enough to share it. And that is all we want for you, is to just be who you are. And how can I help? Do you need help coming out to someone else? Do you need me to help you come out to your parents? Do you need to talk? You want to just sit? You want me to, put on some coffee? Like, what are we doing? And just be very as comforting as you can, because as soon as you say, okay, I'm glad you came to me, they're going to have the biggest sigh of relief they probably have had pent up their whole life. And on the flip side, if it was a negative reaction, all of their hopes and dreams and all their fears that they've been fearing this whole time, maybe the 18 years they waited, the 25 years they waited, maybe they're young, maybe they're only like 14, 15. It's going to be shattered, and they're going to be like, see, this is why I didn't want to do this, and now I've lost you, or I've lost people. So my advice is just to realize how important it is that they came to you. Take that with extreme value. Like you said, be very flattered and just feel love in your heart that they came to you, and that they love you so much that they're willing to risk this relationship you have to just be themselves, because it's eating at them so much. So please be so careful with that. Almost like pretend like they're giving you their hand, like just be so gentle. And again, that's going to be their trajectory. If you were supportive, they might have confidence and feel comfortable to tell someone else, and it's just going to continue on. But that's my biggest advice, is be very delicate and understand how big this could be for them. Even if you don't believe it, if you don't believe that it's right to be gay, or that it's right to be transgender, or whatever it is, please listen and just offer that comfort and just be very delicate.
That is fantastic advice, and that does not require advanced training for anybody to do. It's just human kindness and being aware of the risk that they're taking and the trust that they've got in you. And for those who happen to be students at our college, not all of our viewers are, but if you are, one thing that you can look for if you need someone to talk to is in the hallways where staff and faculty are located. Many of us have the ally stickers outside of our office. And what that means, we're not claiming to be experts. We're not everybody's trained to do, therapy or anything like that. But it means that this is somebody that if you need someone to talk to, you can go in there and there's going to be no judgment. It's going to be handled the way Megan described. And I would also encourage students at our campus that we have a life coach, and you can go to student services and just ask to speak with the life coach. They will not ask at the front desk, what do you need to talk to the life coach for? Or you can email, and I'll put this and other resources, links to other resources at the end of this podcast. But if you email Valparaiso life coach at ivytech.edu, she will get that and can set up an appointment and talk to you. And we've got wonderful life coaches that have really been there. And we're also looking for, we're working toward developing a support group for the LGBTQ population, which I think would be very, very helpful. So if you're interested in that, you can reach out either to the life coach or to myself, and we'll take care of that and provide you with resources that we have at the college, but also referring out as necessary to community resources. And I will put links to community resources at the end of this episode as well. So don't shut off just as soon as we sign off. Wait for the ending credits and resources, and there will be materials there that should help you. Thank you, Megan. This has been a wonderful conversation. I appreciate it so much. And I have to tell you, I feel closer to you after this was an hour and a half. I've not had an hour and a half episode, but I've not felt like, oh, gee, when is this going to end? I've learned a lot. And I really do feel closer to you for your having shared your story. It took a lot of guts. And if I didn't think a lot of you, I wouldn't have invited you to address something this important. So my gratitude is very genuine. You did a lot of good today. Thank you.
Thank you. And likewise, I feel like we need to go get coffee or something now.
I think you're right.
Thanks so much again for having me. It's not easy to talk about these things, but it's part of that trying not to be afraid of who you are, and the idea of spreading some awareness is all part of it, and great month to do so. So
that's right.
For everybody, I encourage you to check out the resources, and if you need to talk to someone, think about the people that you can trust. And I really root for you. It's really difficult, and for younger people and students, and I'm just grateful that I had the experience I had when I was a kid, but not everyone does. So just remember that you are not wrong. You are not a mistake. You are not anything like that. You are you. We are happy you're here, and just keep on keeping on, pretty much. I just want you all to know that it's being who you are is the bravest thing you can be. And for some, it's not that hard. For some, it's very difficult. So keep doing it, keep being you.
Absolutely. Great advice to end on. And I'll just say Megan is very visible around campus. If you are a student of ours, she's a wonderful musician and she leads up the music club. She plays guitar and she's got a lovely voice, and she
Thank you.
frequently performs in the Commons. And you know, you might take that as an opportunity if through this conversation you've come to feel comfortable, like I think I can talk to Megan. If you see her performing and she's wrapping up and you've stuck around and had a cup of coffee in the Commons while you're watching her perform, yeah, I know I'm making an invitation for Megan, but I think I know her
No,
well enough
please.
that she would be very receptive, that if you came up afterwards and said, I'd like to talk to you about something, she's the kind of person who would take the time to talk to you. So she's not hard to
Absolutely.
find. Just listen to the lovely music and follow it, and there she is.
Thank you. Yes, I am someone you can come to no matter what. And remember, my role is the new student experience director, and there's a lot of great things that come with that. And if anything, you know, not only is it my joy to make you feel like you're having a good experience as a student, it's part of my job to make sure you feel like you're supported. And I'm very lucky that that's part of my job. I mean, everyone's job here is to help with that, but very lucky that those new students or any students can come to me. So definitely don't feel like you can't come reach out, or you can't email me, or you can't come find me. Definitely want to make sure you know how to get in touch.
Great. Well, thanks again, Megan. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You have a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.